Now, the next story that he goes into is how he was basically on the front lines with the BLM riots. And he goes on to say that it was 100% planned and coordinated. He thinks it's a real estate play, probably, these are my words, a smart city grab, burn it all down. That's why we're seeing the lawlessness to burn it all down, both right and left, not even talking about burn it all down, bring in these smart cities, or as Trump says, freedom cities. It's a control play, land grab control play. But I thought it was interesting. He's like, look, they were perfectly stationed white vans that were foreigners. Let's roll it. And again, share this video.
Listen, we saw firsthand when the BLM riots happened and us being on the streets during that time, Melrose to Atlanta Buckhead, right? And seeing these solar scooters going down the street, completely sleeves, gloves, mask, goggles, helmets. You can't see, there's no identification. You can't do any facial recognition on these individuals. But they're running through there and they're scanning the entire streets. Across the street, we're doing board up. We've got security teams on the roof. And there's white vans across the street, unmarked. I go across the street. Hey, do you guys need additional security? By the way, the actual protest is happening 4 or 5 blocks from here. And they're like, no, we're good, mate. I'm like, where are you from? New Zealand, Australia, France, UK, just all these different countries, foreign countries that all similarly were staged 5, 6 blocks away outside the zone of where the protests were. Meanwhile, what I found was that night, the areas that we were covering, we made a very clear executive decision. What is the pattern? The pattern is these break-ins, these riots are happening 4 or 5 blocks away from it. It's being caught by the international news, shared with the local news. The local news is on the line covering where the police forces, being pushed back by the protesters. Meanwhile, the rioters and looters are going unabated. Why? Because there's not enough law enforcement that's on the very front of it. But every time that we'd set up security and set up to harden the structure for it, we'd set up cameras everywhere around these perimeters ahead of time. So, it was shocking. We sent so much information to the Metro Police, and the pattern was, it was so beautifully orchestrated. Create the fear. These international guys were staged right where the riots were going to happen. So it was absolutely perfectly coordinated. They weren't 3 blocks up, 2 blocks up. They were right in the zone where this shit was going down.
So this was all planned. This was all
it was 100% planned. And so for us, whether I'm responding to that, whether I'm responding to the border crisis, whether I'm responding to a hurricane or an explosion or some other stuff, I find that we've been blessed to be able to be in that zone on day one. Do I have concerns about it? Yeah. I don't want to be out there doing structure protection and getting zapped, right? If that's the case. But at the end of the day, I just feel that everything's in God's perfect plan. I feel that I'm protected in that aspect. So are our people. And we go in fully conscious, fully aware, deeply spiritually connected, just tuning into what's going on around us, situational awareness, head on a swivel, and just moving on purpose to serve the greater good, serve the people. And in the process, we see things that are happening in those very key moments. It's the critical, that window of what's happening, who's responding, what looks different than what we've done in the past, that then raises a red flag and allows us to take a little more attention to it.
Well, but what's your assessment then of what's behind all this? Because you said you are protected by God and you're driven in alignment with God, but there are demonic forces out there that are causing destruction or chaos or death. Do you have any theory about an overarching goal of some of these events that are engineered?
I personally feel that it has a lot to do with control, right? So you see some of the areas that are getting hit, like Lahaina, like Maui, like Malibu, right? Some of these key places that are getting hit, and it's interesting because on the insurance and risk side of it, insurance premiums are going up substantially where some people are just going uninsured, right? Then on another part on the insurance and risk management, we've had calls with the team that's part of BlackRock in assisting them in putting damage assessment reports together where they're going in and buying up property to then, put into their portfolio. So I think that I kind of feel that there's a big real estate play going in this aspect of it. Because if you have plans in some cases And the quickest way is a structure fire because insurance is going to pay, or a wide area disaster where FEMA is going to pay with taxpayers to help rebuild these zones and rebuild them and rezone them in a way that actually fits that more of a control infrastructure zoning type of situation. Again, I can speculate a lot of things, but I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's disturbing, but
So he nails it with control, real estate play. And again, I think there's a smart city element to this. And ultimately, it's the one world government crowd bringing on the SEALs.